Let's talk about why white men are more likely to be mass or school shooters. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I have been counseling men and women who have been victims and perpetrators of violence. I did a post on mass and school shootings, and I talked a lot about the social rage phenomenon. This lovely commenter asks, I have a question. Is there a correlation to why a certain demographic of people tend to be mass shooters and the psychological framework? This is an excellent question. So I'm going to go based off of, my education, my experience and training and sort of answering this question. Number one, I think I'll state the obvious. In working in mental health, when it comes to trigger warning, by the way. So when it comes to anything with suicidality, so wanting to kill yourself, or homicidality, wanting to kill somebody else, men are always going to be more lethal than women. That's what the research tells us. So women typically, when they are feeling enraged or emotionally overwhelmed and they're feeling like they want to harm themselves or harm someone else, women typically do not go for a gun. That's not always the case, but by and large, men are almost always much more lethal and are first to choose a gun. That's number one. Number two, I think whenever you have school shooters or mass shooters, and a higher number of them have been white, I do feel like, when people get it into their head that they want to commit a crime like this, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll go back and they'll study. They'll glamorize other people before them that have done it. They will go back and look at, prior white men who have done it. And so when you look at other people who have done it, you sort of idolize and you want to copy what that person has done. It somehow it becomes cool in your mind, and you start to feel like you're in a GTA game or something like that. So I think there's that idolization piece. Number three, means and access to firearms. So they're going to have the means and money to have access to that and not be questioned or get very little pushback from that. That's number three. Number four, white men aren't typically oppressed. They walk into the world and the world is their oyster. By and large, and this is generally speaking, right? For the most part, it's a good day to be a white man. White men, there's a lot more freedom and liberation, and just I don't know. You have a lot less worries with that, is what I'm gonna say. And so when a white man starts to feel oppressed, when they start to feel like someone has done something to them, and that rage starts to build and mount. And so they are going to externalize their problems, and they're going to blame everybody else. As opposed to saying, it's my fault, it's my responsibility, I've got some anger issues, I've got to work on stuff. But by and large, when you have people that are mass shooters or school shooters, they're going to blame everyone else. Hence the phenomenon of social rage. Like, I'm enraged that you've taken my child away from me, you've won in court, or that I don't like black people. There's all these sort of phenomenons that happen right where these people become enraged, and then they want to take it out on a group of people. And it's usually something that they have strategized. And because it's something that they've thought about and they've strategized for a while, that means that they've thought about who and planned who they were going to kill for quite some time. So they've sort of, when you think about who you're planning on who you're going to kill, and you're thinking about it in terms of a group of people, that means that you are livid with that group of people. You've been upset with that group of people for a while, and it's just sort of been festering and festering and festering, and so that it's going to come out. And so that's what I'll say about that. Is like, it's usually with a group that they feel oppressed by, a group that they feel has done them wrong somehow. And it's not normal for them to feel oppressed. Or, and again, I'm just generally speaking here. I welcome different views, fruit fly or something, different views, different opinions, and things like that. Lastly, the one thing that I will say, by and large, when it comes to, again, I haven't looked at this stuff in a while, but from what I recall, when it comes to looking at research on police shootings, so, police shootings have by and large been studied a lot. Just because African American people have been targeted, you're much more likely to die as an African American by an officer involved shooting. That's just that. And so I'll pull from that, even though mass shooters aren't necessarily police shooters. I think one of the things that I recall from that research is that when you have white officers that shoot, typically they shoot first and ask questions later. They're quick to draw. They're quick to go for their weapon. They're quick to, do what they got to do and ask questions later. Especially when, I think, and this is different from the research, but I just think when there's ego involved and things like that, I think people start to become a lot more grandiose and entitled. I think we're seeing that now on a national front, when you have these officers go out in these masks and they feel like they can get away with hurting a group of people. We've seen people go to quite the extreme to, if they can sort of get by and not identify themselves, they resort to extreme levels of violence, even when it's not necessary. Another experiment was the Stanford prison experiments that had to be shut down in 3 days. After 3 days, because these folks got so out of hand with power and ego tripping, where they took a group of students and, they had one group of students play guards, one group of students play, prisoners. And the ones that, that were guards, they given them a false sense of authority. And when people have this sense of authority, whether or not it's real or not, they took it and they were actually starting to sexually assault, and trigger warning, the prisoners and things like that, and be violent even when there was no need to do so. So I think a lot of it, again, when ego is involved and when you have a lethal weapon in your hand, they're going to take it there by any means necessary, because they feel like they've been done wrong, and someone has made them feel inferior or told them no, or taken their power away, and they don't like that. And by and large, that's not something that white men in general are used to, if that makes sense, at least not from the United States perspective. So, and this isn't meant to be an offensive post. It isn't meant to be a racialized post. I'm just talking, about a phenomenon, well-documented phenomenon of mass and school shootings, which by and large, in the United States, research shows that white men are more likely to do that than any other race and or gender. So like, comment, and share if this has been helpful. Great question. Thanks for asking.